For the first time in U.S. history, a former U.S. president is facing criminal charges. A New York grand jury voted to indict Donald Trump today. NBC News reports two sources close to this case say the former president will be arraigned before a New York Supreme Court judge Tuesday afternoon. And this indictment stems from an investigation into allegations Trump falsified his business records.
The former president allegedly made a $130,000 hush money payment to adult film star Stormy Daniels. This was during his 2016 campaign. Trump has denied any wrongdoing and has repeatedly attacked the investigation as politically motivated. And while the exact charges are unknown, we could get a clearer picture if the Manhattan District Attorney makes the details public. Alice Barr reports from Washington.
What we do know is that the charge or charges stem from Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg's investigation into a hush money payment to adult film star Stormy Daniels during the 2016 presidential campaign. Daniels claims she had an affair with Mr. Trump back in 2006, a claim he has repeatedly denied. In a statement, his attorneys saying, quote, "President Trump has been indicted. He did not commit any crime. We will vigorously fight this political prosecution in court." This will be the first ever criminal case against a former president of the United States, Mr. Trump, releasing his own statement today, calling the indictment, quote, "political persecution and election interference at the highest level in history."
And that was Alice Barr reporting. As we wait for the actual indictment to surface, many people are asking what's next for the former president and how serious are the crimes.
Now, in the midst of a presidential election that's heating up and Trump's eyes on the White House in 2024, WCNC Charlotte's Colin Mayfield continues our team coverage here, breaking down how the proceedings could go as details in this indictment seems to be still worked out at this point, Colin.
Yeah, Vanessa, and as you guys alluded to, we will get a better idea of what that next week could look like once we finally see the indictment and charges that the grand jury voted on. A UNC law professor I spoke to tonight believes that could happen as early as tomorrow.
This is a little unusual because we haven't actually seen the indictment.
Watching and waiting as news came Thursday that a Manhattan grand jury indicted the former president, shaking up his bid to retake the White House next year.
I don't think that there's any reason for the Manhattan DA's office to delay. So I imagine by tomorrow, the indictment itself will be made public.
Once that does happen, Carissa Hessick, law professor at UNC, told me that former President Trump will coordinate with authorities to show in court and enter a plea.
Even though we've been getting all of these leaks from the grand jury, I don't think that we have a clear sense of what the charges are.
No matter what comes from that, congressional Republicans have been very vocal about potentially investigating Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg, something Hessick believes is unlikely.
The Manhattan DA's office, like lots of state and local offices, gets federal money to do certain things. And my understanding is that the letter that was sent by Congressman Jim Jordan and others referenced this as their stated reason for why Bragg would have to come and talk to them.
She adds that conclusions can't be made on what crimes were committed, the seriousness and weight of those crimes, and then what happens when the former president shows up in court.
I think we're going to have to wait to read the indictment itself to see what it says, to have a better sense of the chance, sort of the seriousness of the charges that the grand jury indicted on, and then also sort of how likely a prosecution on those charges would be to succeed.
So we could see that indictment tomorrow. Now, it's worth noting that although this makes Trump the first former U.S. president to face a criminal charge, a bit of precedent has already been set. Former North Carolina Senator John Edwards was acquitted by a jury in a similar circumstance. He was charged with a campaign finance violation in 2011 related to his 2008 presidential run. Something to point to once we get into this process here, Fred, Vanessa.
All right. Thank you, Colin. And as this case in New York continues, the former president is also dealing with ongoing investigations in other cases. A special grand jury has looked into whether Trump and allies tried to change the Georgia presidential election results in 2020. Trump's lawyers are trying to have that report thrown out. A special counsel is also looking into whether Trump violated any laws by having classified documents at his Florida home after he left office.
As these cases continue, you're probably going to see a lot of claims circulating online. It can be hard to determine what's real and what's not. WCNC Charlotte and our national Verify team is working to clear up the confusion. We already have several articles covering many topics, including fake photos of President Trump being arrested. Those were circulating recently. And then also look into whether you can actually run for president if you've been charged or convicted of a crime. You can find all of that information at WCNC.com/verify.